With Mark Carney being sworn in as the 24th Prime Minister of Canada, I thought it would be quite interesting to look at every single Canadian Prime Minister and talk about one of their aspects. So, a couple of days ago, I did their ancestral background, and now I'm going to do their profession before they entered politics. So for our first Prime Minister, which we're going to start with, obviously, Sir John A. Macdonald, you probably guessed it, he was a lawyer. In fact, he was highly influential during the outbreak of the American Civil War, where he was arguing for people from the North. So that's pretty interesting. Alexander Mackenzie, for what little time he had before he entered politics, was a laborer. Specifically, he was more of a mason. He actually refused being called Sir Alexander Mackenzie on three different accounts because he wanted to stay true to his humble origins. I will say though, had he taken Sir Alexander Mackenzie, that'd be quite confusing with Sir Alexander Mackenzie, the Scottish explorer, which for some reason, I always have to look at his face whenever I want to learn anything about our Prime Minister. Sir John Abbott was more of a career politician type. However, he did serve as a soldier in the local militia since he was pretty young, actually. Before he joined politics, Sir John Thompson was a lawyer, and he was actually such a good lawyer, he served as the Minister of Justice. That is crazy. Sir Mackenzie Bowell was also a soldier. In fact, he joined the Belleville local militia during the American Civil War out of fear that, who knows, maybe the fighting could continue north. Sir Charles Tupper was born in 1821 and was a major force in politics as early as the late 1850s, and he didn't have much time to practice his true profession, which was a physician. Sir Wilfrid Laurier is kind of a weird one. He passed the bar to become a lawyer, although he didn't really ever use that title. He practically went straight into politics. Sir Robert Borden was a lawyer. That's it. Kind of overwhelming there, isn't it? Arthur Meehan was just testing out what he really thought was going to be best for him. So he became a teacher, a lawyer, and a businessman before eventually setting into politics. This is the part where I would say he becomes the best prime minister, although he served for less than, 16 months? So he was kind of an underwhelming prime minister. And for someone that's actually in the conversation for one of the best prime ministers in Canadian history, it's William Lyon Mackenzie King, whose earlier profession was a newspaper editor. R.B. Bennett is probably the most boring of all. He was a lawyer and a businessman. What do you want me to say? Good for him. Louis Saint Laurent was quite famously a lawyer. In fact, he was such a great lawyer that he had to, not once but twice, turn down an invitation to the Supreme Court. That's just how good he was. John Diefenbaker was, well, a lawyer. Again, I know this is starting to get boring, but interestingly, during World War II, he had served as a soldier. And that's interesting somewhat because of the fact that not many of them actually did serve in World War II, but Diefenbaker did. So he's a hero. Speaking of soldiers, Lester B. Pearson was famously a soldier. In fact, he's most known for the fact that he was a soldier, obviously, aside from the Prime Minister stuff. But he wasn't just a soldier, he was a diplomat and even a historian. Why don't we stay on the topic of soldier? Pierre Elliott Trudeau wasn't really a soldier, although he did fight in the military. What he definitely 100% was is actually quite a bit. He was a lawyer, a jurist, an academic, an author, a journalist, and of course, a politician. Joe Clark actually ended up amounting to quite a bit. He was a businessman, a journalist, and even a professor. Ready for some absolute bore fests? Both John Turner and Brian Mulrooney were lawyers, and Kim Campbell passed the law bar, but she never actually did anything with it. In fact, she went straight into politics anyways. And Jean Chrétien is just another lawyer. Skip. Paul Martin, yes, was another lawyer, but he was more than just that as well. He was also a businessman and an author, although he did lean more into the lawyer stuff, though. Stephen Harper is a very interesting case here because he kinda, sorta was an economist, although not really. You see, he moved out west to Alberta from Ontario, and at an act of defiance, just did not attend secondary school at all and actually picked up a job in retail. But after that, he decided to go back into secondary school to get an economy degree. But by the time he was done that, he was already in politics. Justin Trudeau was quite famously a drama teacher. In fact, this was so prevalent that opposition to him, mostly from the conservatives, said that he was unqualified to serve as prime minister, only becoming prime minister on the back of his father's name, and pointed to his, being a teacher as for why. And the most recent Prime Minister, Mark Carney, is very much an economist. In fact, he served as the governor of not only the Bank of Canada, but even the Bank of England. He is definitely an economist. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope I actually taught you something here. And now you know if you want to serve as Canadian Prime Minister, become a drama teacher.